Such an honor to be here amongst all of you and for welcoming you all to the World Government Summit. We look forward to this annual event every year because we get to hear and learn from other governments from all over the world, and also an opportunity to sort of share some of our stories of what we've been doing in the world at UAE government. I'm fortunate to have been part of this story that I'll be giving you a highlight on. Also fortunate to have survived being in government for 20 years. I think most of us have a lot of bruises, but I think it's also been one of the most rewarding job that anyone could actually have, is to see that the work that we do actually impacts lives. So with that, I'll give you a story of what we've been doing. Because of time, I won't be able to go into details of our vision, but I'll focus on two main things: the conventional methods that most governments do, and some of the unconventional methods that we've been doing in the UAE government, and mainly to address what Ghassan has been saying, is because we're not planning for the sake of planning. We want to see impact, and we want to see it today. Our leadership are very anxious. They don't have time. They want to see results today, not in the next generation. And hence, everything that we've tried to do in our vision, in our country's policies, is to address our leadership's urge for real impact. So why do nations have national agendas? I think that's a question we all ask ourselves, but I think we probably know why the answer is. But the bigger question is, how do we execute national agendas? And that's the most important question that we need to ask ourselves. Is it's good to have a strong vision and plan, and we need to have it, but the more important point is, how do we actually ensure that we execute it? So this is the story of the UAE's Vision 2021. And our story is that we would like to be amongst the best nations in the world by 2021. And why 21? It's because it's the year we celebrate our 50th anniversary as a nation. It's the year that we want to say that we want to be amongst the best nations in the world. And what does that actually mean? Before I sort of delve a bit more into that, it didn't come overnight. We didn't actually have a national agenda before 2010. We had a series of many strategies. We are a federated country. We have many cities, Dubai being one, Abu Dhabi another, and we have Sharjah, Al Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, and Ajman as well. Each of these cities have strong visions as well. But for the first time in 2010, we had a countrywide vision. And so it's not that we've been doing this a lot. This is actually our first strong national agenda. But a lot of strategies were happening before that. A lot of planning were happening before that. And that's the difference between a vision of a country and strategies. And this is where I sort of explain a bit more about that. So our vision, in essence, breaks down into four main components: united in responsibility, united in destiny, united in knowledge, and united in prosperity. It was a vision that was announced by our president, and it was mainly to gear the whole nation, government, private, and individuals, to sort of aspire that what we would like to be as a nation in terms of our character, in terms of our economy, in terms of our well-being as well. But what it didn't address is, what does success look like in 2021? How do we measure ourselves that actually we've achieved everything that we've put in the vision? And that's why a national agenda was very critical. The national agenda, in all honesty, was to set the roadmap to actually move towards helping us achieve those broad four principles. For us to have four broad principles, we need to know what success looks like. For us to say, yes, we've achieved our vision, we need to actually have a full roadmap towards that, with tangible milestones and clear outcomes. So what we did was, we cascaded those four priorities into actual national priorities for the nation. We broke it down into 6 national priorities: cohesive society and preserved identity, safe community and fair judiciary, competitive knowledge economy, first-rate education system, world-class healthcare, and sustainable environment and infrastructure. These are our 6 national priorities for our country and our nation. And for those 6 national priorities, a long journey went in towards moving towards that. If you notice, it doesn't belong to a ministry, it doesn't belong to an organization. It is nationwide agenda. And we did then translate it down to national KPIs, which I'll delve into a bit more further later. So the how we did that, I think, is also interesting. And this is something that we did mainly bottom up, to be honest. And we did it in a very unique way. We created something called Vision Labs. We locked everyone up for a month, and we locked them up in a race course. actually, and we didn't literally lock them up, but what I meant is we invited everybody to come and plan with us at our race course. And this was supposed to be a completely off-site area where there is no single owner, where actually everybody has a big role to play. And we call these vision labs. These vision labs actually brought over many different peoples to develop strategic programs to those national priorities, develop strategic plans to those national priorities, and also put a dollar sign towards that. So how much will our Vision 2021 cost us if we were to plan that forward? And it was definitely an unconventional format. We had everybody rolling up their sleeves. We had over 90 entities, federal and local, participating with it, over 160 programs. We put everything on the walls and everything was written so we can easily change and amend as we speak. And we had 300 participants. Ministers came in and came out, participated with us. So it was totally an unconventional. I'm talking about something we did back in 2012, and I'll show how we've evolved since then as well. So 6 sectors had strong programs and had very clear work plans as well. For us to have those work plans, it can't just get stuck at the high level. It needs to be tangible. It needs to have a budget to it. It needs to have an owner. It needs to have proper initiatives to go to that. And we're fortunate that we have a very strong strategic planning process in our nation. And we've been doing this for a couple of years now. I'm fortunate to have been part of most of these cycles as well. So we actually have a 3-year cycle, which then we changed to a 5-year cycle because based on best practices and knowledge, we've learned that 5 years actually is a better period to sort of do planning. So we actually have these cycles where we ask all our government entities to translate the Vision 2021 into what it means for them as an organization. What should their role be to actually help those vision? These strategic plans happen, we're going to be starting the planning for the next cycle starting April. So we plan it actually 2 years in advance. We work very closely with the Ministry of Finance because without the money, there's no point in planning. We need to actually have the money with us, and we need to actually see that it needs to be real. It can't be just, as Ghassan said, something in paper and it doesn't go through. These planning are all linked back to the vision. So there has to be a North Star. You can't plan without knowing where you're heading. You can't plan without knowing what the outcome is. And you can't plan if you don't know what success looks like. And that's why, if you notice, our model is a very cascaded thing, but at the same time, very bottom up. We have a lot of tools. I won't spend time on what these tools are, but we need tools. And I think we know that it's not something that is done in air. It's very technical work, but we need there to be consistency across all the governments, be it from templates to guidebooks to manuals and training. And the main thing that I wanted to come back to is actually our national KPIs. The national KPIs, we have 52 at the nation level. Why it's important to have national KPIs is for the point that you just earlier made, is consistency. If a minister changes, if a portfolio changes, if a mandate changes, this doesn't change. This stays, because this is something that we've all committed to, we're all working towards, and by 2021, we'll see actually if we've reached there or not. Most of these KPIs are global KPIs. We've seen the best from the world and we've embraced them and we've put them, but some of them are very locally driven as well. So for example, we have a KPI for our national identity. I don't think we're going to take a global index for that, but we have also many other internal KPIs that we follow. These KPIs are directly linked to our national priorities. So for example, the priority for first-rate education system has around 9, and every single national KPI has a KPI card. So it's very clear who owns it, what is the reason why we chose this national KPI, what is the target that we're moving, how close we are to it, and how far are we to it. The one we've given here is the PISA one. This is actually that comes once every 3 years. I think everybody's familiar with it. And this is the one that the ownership is given to the Ministry of Education. But the Ministry of Education isn't the only owner, but they're the champion for this national KPI. So all the 52 national KPI actually has a direct mandate from His Highness to the minister to say that you are in charge of ensuring this happens. Now, how did this happen? This is where we have to be a bit unconventional, because just giving them a KPI and asking them to monitor it is not going to get us to the target that we've put. And the target that we've put is really ambitious. These aren't easy targets to meet. These are asking us to be in the top 20, the number 1, the top 10. And for that, we need to actually do a lot of things unconventionally. So, like our vision and like our strategy, the KPIs also have a very strong cascading methodology. From the highest level, which is the national KPI, which is linked to the national agenda, to sector KPIs, to strategic KPIs, and the strategic KPIs are linked to the ministries and the government authorities, to service KPIs, because it's very important. And I think the gentleman mentioned that. How do we ensure services at the top of our agenda? Is because the services is what touches the citizens and the residents. Operational KPIs, these are more internally based, and of course government enablers. Government enablers is an interesting KPI. It's what keeps us competing with each other. It's also what keeps us at the same bar. So we want there to be a consistent level across all our government entities, that they're all following the same behaviors. For example, in terms of training for the public sector, in terms of government spend, in terms of happiness in their organizations. So these are some of the things. The most important thing for our national KPIs, it's not in paper. It is at the highest level. And His Highness, our Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, is actually the one who monitors it regularly. He has his own special dashboard. This is actually a snapshot of his dashboard, where he sees all the national KPIs, where we are, where we aren't. Policies are changed, ministers are changed, and organizations are reshuffled if we're not doing good. So this is quite serious. We take our measurement system quite seriously, and it's quite detailed, and it's audited annually as well. But this is also a dashboard of the Minister of Health, where he can actually see how he is compared to his peers, how he is in his enablers, and how far he is from meeting his strategic KPIs as well. And of course, everybody knows about delivery mechanisms. That's important to ensure. And the most important thing is that the reward. Every year, and actually last month, we rewarded the best federal government that achieved the national agenda. So we've put 60% of our award mechanism in achieving the national agenda. This wasn't the case a few years ago. A few years ago, it was mainly about EFQM and quality. We have changed our reward mechanism to outcome-based. So the Excellence Program, the new program, which is now acknowledged and embraced by all boards from all over the world, is purely outcome-driven. So how are we doing based on our national agenda, based on our innovation, and so forth? And of course, we don't just plan at the vision level and then sector level, entity level. We need to have sector strategies as well. And these sector strategies examples are the Fourth Industrial Revolution strategy that we have, our AI strategy, and our national innovation strategy. Why do we need these strategies? We need these strategies is because to keep us current, to keep us also learning, to make sure that our strategies are not 10 years behind, that our strategies are also aligned with where we want to go as a nation in different sectors as well. A few months back, we launched 6 sectorial strategies in our most highest platform, which is our annual government meeting as well. Okay, what I just shared with you was the conventional. So this is something that I think most of you all are familiar with, probably are doing, and are saying, okay, what's next? Why is it, what's so special? Time is running out. We have 692 days. While I was doing this, I got a panic attack. I didn't realize how much time is running out to achieving our 2021. So we can't go conventional. We have to think out of the box. And people like us who are in government and see plans not being achieved, it's frustrating. It's you start to think, what can we do differently to be able to achieve? So what I'll try to share you, because of time, I'll just give you a quick examples of these, is what we've tried to do, and mainly for one purpose only, is to help us achieve our vision. And that's really the only reason why we're doing that, because our vision is outcome driven. It is touching the citizens and residents' lives. So one thing we did very early on was create a platform where we bring one government together. Most of you all are part of many different governments. You have many different agendas. Probably mayors play a big role, cities and so forth. I think, like all nations, we need to bring government aligned, and we need them all to discuss together in one platform and commit to some things. Before we did this, some of our government officials felt they didn't actually meet ever, and they're peer-to-peer. They're a director of X, and their peer is a director of X in another emirate, and they probably never met before. So we said there's something about a convening. There's something about getting together annually, discussing the highest level of our national agenda and committing to that, and then coming back after a year and seeing where have we reached. This gathering, which you see here, is actually the gathering for the quality of life table. There's around 30 of these. They're based on the most important topics for our Vision 2021. They gather and they commit and they discuss and they commit to programs which we then monitor every year. And the next year we see to what level have they actually reached that. In this gathering also our programs get announced, big statement comes out. But the main thing is to cross the barrier between the different governments. The other thing is the data. And one of the things that we did was create something called National Agenda Executive Teams. National Agenda Executive Teams is to help us achieve our national KPIs. Our national KPIs is very data-driven, but it also needs a lot of cooperation from many different organizations, not just government. So the National Agenda Teams were created to work towards moving that KPI forward, and it's a very strong mechanism to actually get everybody committed. No letters are passed anymore. Please, can you send us this? Or emails are sent that nobody replies. They're all in it. They're all 100% part of the core team. They're all working towards this end goal. But another example that I thought I'd like to share with you is the accelerator. And the government accelerator is a completely different concept to, is it working? Yeah, there's no sound, so it doesn't, so you can hear me instead. Okay. So it's a completely different concept. The idea behind this is that time is ticking, which we mentioned. We don't have time to overplan. In fact, we don't want to plan, we want to achieve. So what we do is that we bring the most pressing challenges and literally the most hardest challenges that from the national agenda. We put it on the table. We co-create what is the objective that we want to achieve in 100 days. It can't go beyond 100 days. If it goes beyond 100 days, it doesn't enter the accelerator. It can go less, but it cannot go beyond. And we commit to what is the target that we want, and we put it out there to the world. So nobody can go back. Nobody can change the plan because it's heavily communicated, and His Highness is heavily endorsing it as well. So His Highness actually announces the targets to the world, and the people in there change their behavior dramatically. They move from becoming public servants to crisis mode. When there's a crisis, what happens to everybody? They just work. They forget the boundaries, they forget the bureaucracy, they forget all the things, they just get to the work because they realize they have to achieve. And this is the whole concept behind the accelerator. Some of the things that came into here were things like reducing road traffic deaths. That's one of our national KPIs, is to reduce road traffic deaths. Now you'd say, how could you reduce road traffic death in 100 days? Well, we did it measure-wise. We looked at the same period of that time between December and February, which is, by the way, the most deadliest time for our roads because we have heavy fog. Don't worry, y'all are here, so you're safe. But we chose the 5 deadliest highways, and we measured in that same period last year what was happening. And after the accelerator comes, we want to reduce that by 10%. Now, this is what the owner of this accelerator asked us that they can achieve, which is the Ministry of Interior. We told them, you don't belong here because 10% you can do it yourselves. If you really want to belong here and you want to be part of this, you need to bring it down by 20%. There was a lot of back and forth, but they wanted to be part of this first experience, so they jumped in. So they said, we will try to reduce the road traffic death in the same 5 highways in the 100-day period with less than 20%. So what did they do? They gathered everybody and anybody who is responsible for the road safety into that space. And our space, by the way, is in a mall. It actually was a mall. It is now called Area 2071. It's the most futuristic incubator for co-collaboration. So we put them in that space. The ambulances came, the road engineers came, the hospitals came, the communication guys came, the police came, the architects came. They all came. 15 people sat together and they said, let's do experiments. Let's do experiments, let's prototype, let's actually make the changes on the roads as we speak. After 100 days, 67% was reduced in road traffic deaths, 67%. This is the same group of people that said we can't reduce it by 10%. Miracles happen when you're in a crisis and when you just stop planning and you just start executing. And now this platform is actually doing 30 of these exercises. It's executing 30, and they're not easy challenges. We push ourselves. We got judges in last time. Judges are not the most easiest people to say, please rush. We got them and we said, one of the national agendas is to create a court system, a one-day court system. And they said it's impossible. But we said, but that's what's needed. That's what the public wants. I mean, if you have a low claims, why do you need to be stuck for months to do a claim? We wanted to do a one-day court system. And that was the direction from the leadership. The judges came, they worked together, and they created the one-day court system. So things happen, and I'm not saying it's easy. It's extremely hard, but it's extremely rewarding. And I think since then, because of the rewarding, we have a very strong queuing system that everybody wants to be part of it. Because as a public servant, when you see the outcome that you've been part of in an unconventional way, you start to get the motivation. The most important part of this is sustainability. We don't want it to be just a 100-day sprint and then you go back to your conventional mode. You have to continue to work in this method. Sorry, I spent a lot of time here because I'm very passionate about this project. One of the other things that we look at is, of course, labs. I think we're all familiar with labs. When we started this, it was very difficult to get people to sit in round tables and to facilitate and use sticky notes. This has now become the norm. If you get somebody to sit in a boardroom, they'll refuse now. So this has become the norm. And the idea behind this is that we want to agree together what's the most important challenges. We want to agree what's the outcome, and we want to have real tangible decisions at the end of that lab as well. Design, design, design. I think you heard from Paul this morning, some of you. Why is design so important in experimentation? And again, that all goes behind to the point of outcomes. That goes to the point of prototyping, goes to the point of stop planning, but doing. And doing, but in, of course, a mitigated risk manner. So don't go prototyping when you're in a surgery, or don't go prototyping on children's lives, but do it in a way that you can actually show the benefits of it and you can actually see the right outcome. We have all been transformed. We don't like PowerPoints. We like to create things. And I think it's a movement that slowly will creep into to everyone's life. And who do we talk to? We keep talking about public engagement, but who are we engaging? We engage also the usual suspects. What we're trying to show is that we shouldn't engage the usual suspects. Maybe we need to engage people that are going to own what we're going to do in the future. That's His Excellency, the chairman of the World Government Summit, and that's my daughter. But what we tried to do there is to hear from the tweens, to tell them, I mean, this was actually a workshop that we did. And we asked them to prototype what would the future look like and what future do you want to be part of. And the reason why we did this was because we were co-creating our centennial plan. And we said, how can we co-create our centennial plan without the people who's probably going to benefit it the most? And we're probably going to be the one on the right if we, inshallah, if we make it. Yani. But that was really the main reason, is to speak to different types of people, but even the people we speak to speak to them in a different manner. So this was actually an exercise where we engaged with our senior citizens, and we engaged with them not by going to them in their elderly home with a survey and asking them, what would you like government to do? No, we actually told them, can you design what you would like as services from the government? And this is actually something that they designed. And we took them to a five-star hotel, and we got them to work with all the things that we usually think it's for children. The outcome was tremendous. We actually all just started to cry because we realized, and it hit us, that we've been doing something wrong and we should be doing something differently now. So these are all eye-openers about public engagement. It's not just about saying we engage for the sake of engaging, it's how we engage them. Of course, I mentioned about this future planning, and it's critical. We're not planning for 2021. We're working to achieve 2021. We're planning for 2071. And that's very, very important. You can't have a nation that's just looking, that's just a ripple effect. It needs to look where it's going beyond its 2021. Because 2021, like I mentioned, is 600 days away from here. If we just focus only on the 600 days, when we achieve our vision, are we going to stop and start asking ourselves what's next? No, we should know exactly, and we should be running towards what's next. And this came from a clear direction from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed when he talked about in a forum for the future generations. Based on that, a lot of things happened, and the main thing is that we announced our centennial plan, which is the 2071. And this isn't rocket science. These are things that we would like to achieve. And that is our world's leading education, the world's leading economy, the world's happiest society, and the world's leading government. Because our aim, end of the day, is to be one of the leading nations in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. And I think you rose to the challenge of Paul this morning of talking about both KPIs, right? Keeping people inspired as well as key performance indicators. I think it was a very good counterpoint as well to what we'd heard from Hassan just now, which was about the full scope of the tools and how the tools and the lessons blend. I think we have a great example here of some of the tools that you're using, but I think what I took away was more, you know, the inspiration and the different way of engaging and the different way of engaging civil servants and engaging citizens. And it's something that we are seeing more and more around the world, is this idea that, you know, in order to change what government does and how it does it, you need to change the inside of the machine. You need to change that idea that, you know, government is all about the law and, you know, the policies translating into laws, translating into processes and, you know, and into that production function. You have to shift that mindset to government being about co-creation and about innovation and about design and about people. You know, it's a very, very different approach and one that, you know, that is essential though, given the changes that are going on around us. So
I just wanted to add, it's not by mistake that they've asked me to lead policy and strategy and law and innovation. It was by design.
Yes.
It's because they need to merge.
They need to converge.
They need to converge, yes.
Absolutely. Let's take a few questions before we end the session. I think Minister Ezzedine, you had a question earlier. Would you want to come back?
It was not actually a question. It was like sharing our experience with what I think the resistance when you are in the way for transformation comes not only from the public servants within the institution or from the people. It's also from the political team, from the high-rank political team, because they have a different mentality first, and they have interests, and I think they look at it as if we are talking about only technology, and this is not technology. We are not buying technology. We are using technology for reform, and it's very much related to the governance issue, where they have to understand this, and also I think it's the economy. They have to link it to the economy, and when we talk economy, we're not talking money. We're talking people. Right. Economy is about people, it's not about money. So this awareness and this culture is not, we should not only involve the people, but how easy is it to involve the political people and the political authority? And this is a big challenge that we have to face, especially when the mindset is a mindset of narrow interests and narrow divided or common interests. So I don't know what, and the insights. How can insights be used as a tool to promote this transformation among the people? And is it possible to use it for the political team?
I think you raised some very deep questions, and the Lebanese in the room will know exactly what you're talking about. But what do you think, Shafa?
I think we cannot, of course, ignore political interests. We cannot ignore that sometimes it is so clear that we should be doing this, and yet we're not, for various reasons. The big question is, I think, building on what Ghassan said, is that you need to make the political interests part of you very early on. The reason why co-creation is there, it's much easier to do it ourselves, believe me. And sometimes with co-creation, you probably get 20% of change, but the bulk was the same. It is for the buy-in. And the buy-in is important, very, very important. We cannot mark down the importance of that, because we could have a great product, a great initiative, but there's no buy-in. But sometimes it needs to come from the top. Like the example of the government accelerator, if I was to say it was done bottom up, it would never have happened. It had to be something that the Prime Minister announced himself. It had to be something that the Prime Minister endorsed. And it had to be something that the Prime Minister chose. Because believe me, who would want to be part of this? not a lot of people would want to be part of this. Now they do, because now they're reaping the rewards. But at the first instant, the first cohort, we did not have a queue. We had a huge resistance. But the fact that we have that backing from the top, that then the rallying comes. And the key thing is, we are always behind the scenes. You will never see our faces as a Prime Minister's office, because it is the ministry that needs to shine. It is the ministry that needs to take the credit. So with the Government Accelerator, there is no organization's name associated with it. It is the joint emblem. It is placed in the Area 27 because it belongs to everyone. It is open from 10 to 10 because there is no entry or ticket. There's no punch-in. It is the government's. And that was done for this main reason. There are no political interests. There's nobody owning it. Everybody owns it. Because of that, we have ministers walking in, using the boardrooms for their internal meetings, and that's the outcome that we wanted. That's the only way we could have gotten the political gain. It was not easy, and I'm sure we all know that. Yeah.
It's funny that you used pretty much word for word exactly the sentence that the minister used with me a few months ago when she was talking about digital transformation in Lebanon, about making sure that the line ministries shine and that they, that we can work behind the scenes. We don't need to appear. Didn't you say that? And that it's about showing them that they will reap the rewards from it. Let them be in the limelight. We don't care, provided that we get the results. So it's and I think somehow women are better at doing that kind of thing, if I may say so. They're just better at looking at the big picture and seeing, okay, what really matters here is to get to results. It's not about the ego or the looking good or whatever. It's about are we able to move this ball forward or not, right? And of course, top leadership is critical. But there's one thing: leaders hate to be alone. They like to look around, and they compare themselves all the time. So I'm sure the leaders in Lebanon and in Morocco and in Tunisia, and they know what's happening in the UAE. They know what's happening in Saudi. They look around, and Egypt knows what's happening in the next door. So I think there is an element of, okay, if there are successful examples in the region, they can have a cascading effect. That's one. Two is that there's also an element of creating coalitions for change. Civil society is a really important player. The media, civil society, they can play a really important role in terms of creating a constituency for change. And it plays differently in different contexts and different countries, but it can certainly play a big role. Let's see if there are other questions. Yes.
Thank you very much, Excellency. It's very interesting to hear the fascinating success story of UAE in strategic planning, and I must admit that it's a very blessed country. Unlike plural politics we have I'm from the Maldives, and I happen to be also a commissioner of the Judicial Service Commission of Maldives, which is a watchdog and regulatory body of the judiciary. And I was really struck by the concept and the success story of the making one-day court system, because in our case, the judiciary is like North Pole ice. It's very difficult to break. Even if it breaks, it is still ice. So therefore, it's very fascinating, especially when we follow Sharia law as well, being a Muslim state. So I'm just curious to know, what was the magical formula you applied to make this court, one-day court? Is really
the
good.
magic formula is the competition. So we start these as cohorts. So the court system challenge was part of 8 other challenges that happened at the same time. So there are 8 ministers who are committed to achieving a target, and they all need to show their results in 100 days' time. So it wasn't a matter of choice. It was a matter of that we will look really bad, and if we can't prove that we can achieve this one court system, the one court system, the how, the methodology, what we should be doing, it was there from before. Everybody knew it. It was a commitment. It came out of one of the big programs that we need to do. The only reason why it wasn't happening was, I think, time commitment, resources, getting people to agree on how, getting all the judges to commit to the legal bylaws that needs to go into that court system. That was really the thing. We were lucky that we had one successful example in one of the Emirates. So we said, since one of the Emirates are doing it, let's scale it. So I think that was the thing that made it happen. But really, it is the fact that, like we said, it's a very transparent platform. Everybody sees the outcome. There's midpoint reviews. I remember I was in one of the midpoint reviews, and they were actually the furthest away from achieving their target compared to the others. But when they sat there and they heard the 8 others way beyond, they suddenly looked at them and they said, okay, we need to do something differently. And then they woke up. So it's really that. And that's really the benefit of that platform. But I can share a bit more if you'd like by email. Thank you.
Well, on that positive note, I think we can wrap our session up by putting our hands together for Her Excellency for sharing that experience. I really learned a lot. I hope you did as well. And thank you so much to all the organizers and the tech support for the excellent organization. Thank you.